Hi there, tennis players. Welcome to Play Tennis Practice Yoga. My name is Margaret Bannon, and today we're going to talk about how to relieve low back pain. If you're a tennis player, chances are at some point you've experienced, at the very least, some tightness in the lower back, or unfortunately, maybe some larger back issues. The sport is really tough. It puts us in a very vulnerable position. We're bending over, so to speak. We're taking a lot of twisting actions, and this method might just help you relieve some of that lower back pain. I've been teaching this to my students and practicing it on myself for the last 6 months or so, and I found it to be very effective. Although we'll just do one set of each of these 5 movements today. You could do 2 sets, maybe even 3 sets, and it's something that can be practiced throughout your day. When you get up in the morning, before or after tennis play, even before you go to bed. So it's something that's empowering because it's something that you can do for yourself, and we don't have to rely so much on the masseuse, the chiropractor, all of these other modalities. We can essentially treat our own backs. So with that said, I'm going to show you what we're going to practice, and you don't need much. All you need is a wall. Today we're going to use the side of the tennis fence, and I'm going to use a mat just to get down on the ground, but all you would need is a wall, and if you're inside, maybe just the carpeted floor that you're working with. If you like this video, I'd love to have you hit like on the video and even subscribe to our channel for future practices. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So for the first movement, you can have your back right up against the wall. I'm using the tennis post for today. Now these first 2 movements, I want to mention that a lot of times we feel lower back pain more on one side versus the other. So if your low back pain is pretty central, you might skip these very first 2 movements. Okay, if you know which side you're experiencing pain on, you would want to be moving your hips away from the side of the pain. Okay, so in other words, you're only doing these movements to one side if that's the case. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm up against my wall here, and I'm going to move my hips away from the side of the pain. So if I'm feeling the pain, what looks like to you on your left side, my hips will be moving out to the right or vice versa. So that's something that you have to figure out a little bit on your own. The pain might be expressed in the low back, maybe even down into the hip. So with that said, I'm going to place my hands to my sides. My feet are on the ground, and I'm simply going to side bend over to the side, and then I'm going to come out. And so each time I come into my side bend, I might feel a little bit of pinch, I might hear some adjustments, a little crack, a little pop along the way. You're not holding this for a very long time. As you're coming over the side, you might feel like you're able to go a little deeper. This is something that's very important in this method. You're challenged to push a little bit, which is a little different from the traditional yoga approach, right? And so we're playing around with, are we able to come down further in the side bend? We're playing with that limit or that edge. And I'm going to do a couple more. So I would do this about 10 times if you've never done it before. I'm just going to estimate that maybe I'm going to do 1 or 2 more, and then I'm going to come on out. So it's a nice idea to walk around a little bit in between sets. If I experienced it, yes, I was able to go a little further as I went along. I didn't experience any strange pains. That would be the green light to go ahead and do another set, up to 3 sets. But again, if you're new to this, you might just start with 1 of each and see how that works out for you. Okay, so that's set number 1 or exercise number 1. Exercise number 2, I'm going to come back to my fence over here. I'm going to place my hand in line with my shoulder. If you have wrist issues, this is something that you can also do with your forearm. So keep that in mind. My hand's in line with my shoulder, my hand's on my hip, and now I'm going to step away from my fence or my wall so that I'm on the side. So same idea, my hips are moving away from the side of the pain. So you're moving the same direction you did in the previous exercise. So in this exercise, I'm going to gently push with my hand on my hip and let my hip sway towards the wall, and then I'll come out. Again, I'll gently push the hips. My arms stay straight, I come out. And again, you're just teasing this out What does it feel like? I'm going to go till I feel that little bit of a pinch or a little bit of a discomfort or tightness. And then I'm going to come on out. It's not something that we want to hold for a very long time. Again, I'm going to shoot for about 10 today. Just really paying attention. This is one aspect of why we might call it yoga, because we want to be mindful of how our body is experiencing the movement. That gives us a lot of information. And so now I'm going to go ahead and come on out. Again, it might be a nice idea to walk around a little bit to see how you're feeling. And we'll get to our third movement now. Actually, the third movement isn't a lot of movement at all. It's simply lying on the belly, hands either supporting the head as a pillow, or maybe you're turning your head over to one side, or maybe you place a little bit of support beneath your head. So I'm going to come onto the mat. This is actually a nice thing to do also when you get up in the morning, to flip over to your belly. If you're not a belly sleeper, it can help reset a lot of things in the back. So we won't hold it as long today, but in this movement, or position rather, you're either bringing your forehead to your hands or turning your head one way, as I'll do so that I can see you a little bit more. And all you're asked to do is lie here and allow there to be a heaviness in the legs. Notice what's happening in the low back. And it's a nice opportunity to begin to breathe into the lower back. So when I practice this at home, I do this for about 2 minutes in length. I like to time my breath so that I don't have to set a timer. So for example, for me, I know I take about 12 breaths per minute. So I stay here for about 24 breaths. And then when I'm done, I come on to that second position, which is what we call Sphinx pose in yoga. So now I'm bringing my elbows pretty much beneath my shoulders. I'm going to bring my hands together in a prayer-like position. So I'm propped up a little higher now. And again, we want to allow a heaviness to come into the lower body. You'll probably become a little more aware of your lower back now. And what you're trying to do is focus your exhalation specifically on the lower back, allowing the lower back to sag or even hollow out. So you might feel a slight discomfort, especially if you're not used to taking these back bending type movements. Really necessary for tennis because we're countering everything that we do is more forward moving. We're trying to open up the front body. I might even press into my pinky fingers a little bit more to get a little more lift through the chest. I might even draw these shoulders away from the ears and start to gaze forward a little bit more. And so same thing, once I think that I've held that for about 2 minutes, then I'm going to take a little bit of a rest, coming back to our original position. Resting, just checking in. And then lastly, we'll do what's commonly referred to as cobra or cobra push-ups in yoga. It's pretty similar. So I'm going to bring my hands beside my chest. My elbows are hugged in towards the sides of the body a little bit more. And as I inhale, I'm going to press into my hands, maybe see how high I can come up with comfort. And then as I exhale, I'm going to lower down. So inhaling, I'll press into my hands, see if I can come up higher. Maybe, maybe not. Exhale, I'm going to lower down. Now, if it feels okay, each time I come up, I might stay up for an extra breath, take a full inhale and exhale so that I can allow my low back to sag on exhale and totally let go. I just felt a nice little release there. And then I'm going to slowly lower down. So within the Mackenzie method, this is said to be probably the most important of all the movements. When I first started practicing these movements, I was really encouraged because I was getting these really loud adjustments every time with many of the reps, and I was feeling immediately relieved from the type of movement I was experiencing. We'll just do a couple more. And you'll find, are you able to come up a little higher each time? Same idea, legs, pelvis are heavy. You might start to be able to straighten the arms a little bit more. Maybe the gaze starts to look upward a little bit more traditional to that cobra-like position. By the way, when I first started practicing this, I had no hope of straightening my arms, and by day 3 and day 4, I was able to fully straighten my arms in this cobra-like position. And that's one of the things that really made a believer out of me, just seeing the change in the range of motion here. So I'm going to do one more. Typically, I like to hold the last one. So then heaviness in the legs, heaviness in the low back, breathing and allowing low back to sag, and from that, maybe lifting up through the front body a little bit more. And I'm going to slowly lower myself down. Again, I'm going to make a pillow with my hands beneath my forehead. I'm going to rest. So you could lie here for a couple moments. But today I'll press up so that we can close our session. And so there you have it. 5 simple movements. We have the side bends up against the fence or the wall. We have the side glides. Remember that you're moving the hips away from the side of the pain. If you typically experience pain more on one side of the back than the other. Then you're lying on your belly, and then you're doing Sphinx pose on the forearms, and then finally you're doing your cobra-like push-ups. One thing I forgot to mention is that both the Sphinx and the cobra-like positions, feel free to adjust your arms a little bit. So in that Sphinx pose, I had my elbows beneath my shoulders, but you could experiment with bringing the elbows more forward, and you could also experiment with bringing your hands more forward in the cobra push-ups. Sometimes I'll do one set the one way, the second set slightly more forward, just to target a slightly different area in the back. Okay, the first position, the one that I mentioned, will target the lower back more so, a little more, with a little more of that targeted area that we're talking about today. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, if you tried it, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the section below. And I would love to have you like and subscribe to our channel for future practices. Happy practicing to all you tennis players. I really hope that this helps. It's helped me out tremendously. And try this before or after practice. Maybe even throw it in a couple extra times during the day if you're finding that it's helpful for you. Namaste.